Hey everybody, this is Rydo and we're back to Hellblade, Senua's Sacrifice. So, there's something weirder than normal, I'll say. Might as well just be paused here as I talk about this. As far as the achievements, in the fact that it's about 87.6% or exactly that on Steam, as far as all players that have played the game made it to the very first fight of the game. And that seems very odd. Like, literally, all you would have had to have done up until that point is do walk around where the very beginning of the game is and do one perception puzzle. And then that would have been the first fight where you would have reached that door where you would have had to have then do the other two sections. Uh, what's even crazier than that, the only thing I can even think there is that 13% includes everybody who's just accidentally launched Hellblade and didn't really mean to launch it and they just wanted to own it and play it later. It includes anyone who played the game and couldn't get it to run, and it includes anyone who saw the voices talking to Suna and they didn't like that and got freaked out by that, or by crossing the bar and got freaked out by that, or by the goriness in the bodies and got freaked out by that, or they hated the perception puzzle, which I would say the hating the perception puzzle is about the most uh, realistic reason there. But to not even get to the first fight, or maybe the achievement unlocks after the first fight, so maybe they hated the first fight. But what is really weird next is to defeat the first one that you should have done, that I went out of order, to defeat that one sub area. That drops it down to less than 50%. We'll just estimate there. So half of the players didn't even get through the first section of this game, which, when you have statistics like that, that really reinforces to a game developer. It's like, why even bother to put any content in a game if this is going to be the scenario where you are straight up going to have half of the players not even make it through the very first section, let alone the first 2 hours. Now, what's even weirder, and normally the scale is way more linear, you'll see how at least 60-75% of people get past the first section, the first couple hours. That's where I would say doing the first enemy and the second enemy, you'd be over the 2 hour point at that point usually. And then you'd kind of see a steady drop down. You wouldn't see sharp drop downs, particularly in this kind of game. There's really no reason for it. But then there is a fairly high number. I would say, I think it's 30.9% of players made it all the way to the end. So while less than half made it past the first part, that half that you kept then mostly all played all the way to the end of the game. However, the final achievement, and this will be the kick in the butt, is that for most players, including me, unless I can go back and get these runes, only 3% got all of the runes in the game. So, yeah, that sucks. We got this one. I wonder if I want to really listen to it again, just to remind myself what it said.
Son of Sigmund, no less. Born after his father's death, Sigurd is cared for by the dwarf Rain. But Rain
We'll look
does not
around
love the
while
boy.
we get our
Instead,
bearings.
he plans to use him for his own ends. You see, Rain's father possessed a great treasure given to him by the gods. But Rain's brother, Fafnir, killed his father and took the gold all for himself. Fafnir hid the treasure out on a heath and could not leave it. And from the evil in his heart, he turned into a dark creature. A dragon.
Interesting, we're hearing voices again. and their spooky, dark voices. Okay, so we have to jump down, which is gonna trap us once again, making it where you can't go back. Which, whatever. I mean, remember, we just kind of fought all these monsters in a sea of corpses. This is hardly that scary compared to that. If there is a dragon that they're implying we're gonna fight, it feels like we should have fought that a long time ago. So, yeah, these voices still not super helpful. Like, super negative when you're in the darkness. And you just don't have anything there to light that up. And see, I've only seen one section where there's been a torch, so...
What is it? She can feel it. No. Don't open the door. No, go in. Turn back. What's in there?
A lot of it's just feels.
Garm is its name, and it knows you are here, Senua. It can smell your stink. What are you afraid of, Senua? How would you save Dillion if you are too much of a coward to step into the shadows?
They can't stop me.
Then do it.
Yeah, unless you had some kind of fire starting ability, which that would be cool, I suppose. Like, it doesn't seem like we're gonna use that torch. So, this might be the first point in which we actually have to run.
The beast is stalking you from the shadows. Your sword is useless here.
Seems like we are once again in a run-only scenario. It sure seems to me like there is a possibility that this whole path is just going to end up having the path being lit.
Don't be fooled. The beast is still here.
Then all of a sudden it got really quiet.
It's a trick.
Mother, do you hear that?
Don't fall for it.
It's me, Senua. It's so loud.
It's not her.
So full of hate.
It's a trap.
Just want to help them. Tell me what to do. Your father wants them to go away.
This is an odd.
And he only hurts me to silence them. But he's gone now. They always come back.
Like, this is just like a
Says I
terrible
will die.
camera
I can go
angle,
with
but
them.
it's way better than just staring at the screen. But it really highlights how
Be with them.
whoever the
Stop.
director of
That's
this
why they
game
crawl through
was,
the
as far as the
walls.
visual director, is
Don't
not
you see
qualified.
them? Do you see their faces? He's coming.
And
Senua,
see, all of
help me.
the visions of the mother
Get me out of
are
here.
like lower quality, which to me makes me suspect that they
Shouldn't be here.
they screwed up the recordings of her.
She took her own life.
Her
to
mother's.
escape it.
She can't remember when it started, or when her mother lost her smile. Her eyes gazing past her towards a world she could not see. This is what happens if you reach for the underworld, he said. It was a lot to take in for a child. And the first time she felt the cold chill of fear. I don't talk much about her father, Zenbel. I suppose I just didn't want to risk upsetting her. But it doesn't matter now, does it?
I wonder if the main voice in her head is the mother. Guess that would make some sense.
The beast has been here. Everywhere. Must be through here. Keep going.
I guess we'll just go down here. Again, this feels very much like they were just envious of a kind of pointless scene.
She can't do it. She can't do it. No. The light's gone out.
Alright.
Run! Get through it as quick as you can. The panic is here.
So she has like major fears of the darkness.
Run and get to the light. Stop. Stay there.
This definitely feels to me like a unrealistic representation of what fear of the dark would be.
Look. Fire. There's fire. How would she get it? Fire. She has to go towards it. The light.
Okay, so we're running this way. Get here. To then run this way. Come back and get fire. Let's run up here and let's see. Let's go ahead and just open this door just in case. There we go. Yeah, the scene in which in the first Tomb Raider reboot game, in particular, what you're crawling through the mud, is really just a transition scene. It kind of is nothing. It does not come off as anything that's particularly important or even that interesting. It doesn't evolve into any kind of gameplay mechanic. Seems to me like what we're gonna do is light up as many torches as we can. If we can find any more. See, I don't think you're supposed to go back into the water. So it sends you this way. So I guess it wants you to walk through here, this gate. If anything, I guess I should applaud this game somewhat for...
Can you feel them? Can you see them?
Okay, so we need to light it up so it reflects.
Look. Where is it?
I don't want to fall in the water.
What are you waiting for?
There we go.
Keep doing. Go in plain sight. She has it. You have it.
Yeah, we are just like at the end of the game though, in which we are actually manipulating our vision. And when you compare the reveal of this compared to the reveal of what you can do to manipulate your perception in the game The Witness, it's just night and day, the difference.
You think you know, but you don't. Your mother is
And I think that's probably
alien, is
a weird comparison, but an interesting comparison to take is that they probably spent, I'm guessing, 6 years making this game, trying to make it more of an action God of War style game with way more gameplay mechanics. That would be my guess. Whereas The Witness they spent probably 6 years again developing that game, knowing from the beginning that it was going to be a puzzle game and that this one gameplay mechanic that exists would be the only gameplay mechanic, and it would have to be
sole desire is to possess
implement-
this fragment of cursed treasure.
implemented over and
he
over
uses
again.
Sigurd to reclaim it. He tells Sigurd the story of Fafnir's gold, and the good-hearted hero promises to slay the dragon if Rain would forge a strong sword for him. Sigurd remembers that his father once possessed a sword given to him by Odin. Odin broke the sword to bring about Sigmund's death, but Sigurd's mother still has the pieces. And so Rain reforges the famous sword. Sigurd uses the sword first to avenge his father, and then he and Rain go in search of Fafnir.
I wonder if there was supposed to be a jump scene here where a gust of wind will blow out the torch or something. I suspect is what will happen.
Her torch is going out. No, it's not. It's going to run out soon. She hasn't got much time. It's going to burn out. She's too slow. It's not going to burn out. The darkness will come again. Stay in light. Save later.
So if we set a torch here. Okay, there is. I would assume that would reset the torch if the torch really is going to burn out.
She has it. She did it. She's done it. Well done.
This place. It reminds her of the isolating, suffocating darkness that she lived through as a young girl. Imprisoned in her room at night, the faces in the dark, coming through the walls. She once thought everyone could see her. I mean, that's what children say all the time, isn't it? That there are monsters in the dark. By the time she realized that only she could see them, her father, Zinbel, could see the monster in her.
So it seems like there's a gate here that doesn't seem like it does anything. And we came through that door. And we have two choices. So that was one way. Let's go the other way and see where that leads. You would think there might be a gameplay mechanic here where you would not be able to run, because running would make the fire go out. But that doesn't seem to be the case. So we did that one. Guess we should go this way. There's an argument towards think we may very well have already been down this way too, but this gameplay, like, it almost
The light will save her now. She can sense it.
definitely feels
Lighting the torch.
like you could turn this into a bit of a game.
She's lighting
You see a whole bunch of corpses. It's shocking how little. Is this the beast? I wouldn't be surprised if this exactly is that. Because they couldn't really make a dragon. And we have this now. We now have these super strong swords, so it's not like there's really that much they can do to take us out.
Take the torch and move.
Although, yeah, if you were going to have sections where you have to turn on the lights, they need to be fairly limited. You'd want to see a lot more conflict and fights like that. You'd want to see if you're going to have fighting be such a focus, you would want to see more. Interesting, you can relight the torch multiple times. Yep. You definitely would want to see more variety in the enemies. They're all kind of exactly the same. Thought we were going to end up pushing this rod, but I think it's kind of just here in the blood.
You have all the roots.
Do you feel it? The beast is crawling into your mind, searching for weakness. It found your mother and used her to trap you in here.
Did you see her die? I don't remember. I was only 5. They told me she escaped the darkness, that she's with the gods. But what if they lied? What if the darkness took her and trapped her here?
Trying to find any more runes. In case there are any more runes, but I think I've probably looked as far as I'm willing to look without any guarantee of being able to go back and get the other runes. I'm still just not on this like on board with the story, so I just don't really care if the mother died or not, or if she escaped to the mountains. That's how
It's
this.
a trap. The beast is coming.
And that immediately put the fire out, as if this whole time the fire has been out everywhere, or that the beast can just
What have you done? You've lost it. It's over.
The darkness is back. Lost him. You've lost him.
You see, I guess the
Without his head,
joke here,
his soul back, his fate is sealed.
she says that that's Dylan, but maybe that was her father's
Now I
head.
can see you at your weakest. The time
But I
you
just
suffered
assume
as
that this is
child
just a
at the hands of your father
hallucination.
Senua while you pined for Dillion. Do you remember the darkness, Senua? The beast is bringing it back.
you leave me?
Honestly, just kind of feels like bad feminist poetry. It's a weird comparison to make, but that's how the story definitely feels. Is that it's
from the others. Away from Tilly.
and I've never been a fan, frankly, of stories like this. The flowers in the attic type stories, where it's just here's a horrific tale of horrific abuse of someone, and all the horrible things that happen to them, and then maybe at the last chapter they'll be freed and everything is supposed to be all right, and you're supposed to just assume that they're not traumatized for the rest of their lives, which more than likely they would be. Or very often it's a case where the person is abused and then the only freedom they ever get is through fantasy or death. It's like, I'm not somebody that just wants to see 100% happy-go-lucky stories. Fine. I'm fine. I'm not like that by any means. And I'm not really even enough of a pro-censorship. I'm very much anti-censorship, so I'm not saying artists shouldn't be able to tell their stories the way they want to tell them, but as a critic, my 2 cents there is whether I think the story is good or not, and I think very often the stories are not good when you get these kind of book equivalent of the torture porn movies, which I don't feel like the torture porn movies, I don't think a lot of those are very good either. Like, the only thing you can assume here is that the beast is the father, because it would be really crazy for it not to be the father and someone else. Otherwise it's just going to be a beast. And I wouldn't be surprised if you don't actually fight it at all, because they struggled obviously so much to program enemy movement that they probably don't have a way that the 3D model of the beast as we've seen it would turn into something else. Now this is funny because we're effectively going to walk through here, and I think the waterfall will put the fire out. Oh, I'm surprised it didn't. There's still a question as to why the game implies that... Wow, that was slow. Like, that Senua killed anybody, because she really didn't. It looks to me... I hear a heartbeat, which I think implies that I've taken more damage than I should have. And it has put up this walls, we can see. This is so much butt mashing. Come on.
Don't give up.
Kill this one.
Behind you.
So apparently maybe I can't focus on this until later, because it doesn't seem like it's really going to let me. And all of those fences really did just appear out of nowhere. Okay, well, we can see that there's probably an R up here that we need to get, but I'm not sure we're even at that point yet. I really would just like to see them get rid of the fighting section of this game. But I mean, there'd be no game at all at that point. And there's barely any game now. Okay, so I was able to scan this. So we can open that. That didn't work the way I thought it was going to work. I feel like this is probably the point where that video game critic got stuck and it was glitched because he died somehow. Although it seems like it would be fairly difficult to die in this at all.
He was trying to save her from the darkness.
Zinbel was right. Zinbel was trying to save her from the darkness.
The problem, though, here
But she wouldn't listen.
with any of the story, whether it's the voices, do we have the subtitles on or not? I haven't. Yeah, they're on. We're just not seeing them anymore.
And now
I've left this game running, so it seems like that very well has just crashed.
She should have known.
It's kind of ridiculous to have subtitles and then
Why doesn't she know?
allow them to crash. I mean, there's no real legitimate reason why the subtitles would crash.
She can search and search.
Yeah, but to get back to what I was saying,
It's the end.
you have an unreliable narrator here, so we don't know if Sinbel really is abusive or not. We don't know if anything that we're being told is real or not. Yeah, we have like one person or two people crucified. They didn't want to go with any kind of like religious symbolism, although for this time frame, being crucified probably wasn't, it wouldn't have anything to do with like Christianity.
The dragon Fafnir is so large and deadly that it would be impossible to kill him face to face.
We have like 3
Each
more
day,
we'd need to
Fafnir
collect.
crawls across the heath to find water. So Sigurd digs a pit in the dragon's path and lies in wait in it. When Fafnir slithers overhead, Sigurd sinks his sword into the dragon up to the hilt. Sigurd leaps from the pit, and Fafnir sees his killer. He warns Sigurd that the treasure will lead to his death, as it led to the death of all who owned it. Sigurd replies that death comes to all men, and every man would want to be wealthy until that day. And he takes the treasure.
Yeah. This looks like this might be an interesting place to be lit up. in most games, this audio would just trigger when you got close to an area. It would just be the memories of the stories. It wouldn't be an achievement for sure.
He touches the roasted heart to see if it is done. He burns his finger. Without thinking, he licks his finger and tastes the dragon's blood. In that moment, he understands the language of birds and hears them talk nearby.
And she'll die.
I need to be able to make the image cross something like that on the shield. And to do that means I need to run through here, and then that'll put the fire out. Where's the light? Yeah, and those kinds of flashing images of horrificness, if they showed enough of that to me, then that might make sense that I might be upset by that. But honestly, I don't think so. I just don't think that there's enough in this game. Alright, so I need to run, but I'm confused as to where to run, so I'm gonna just run forward and hit a wall. So I was supposed to run this way, I guess. See, this would be funny if this actually was where the game ended, and some people just get a bad ending. If anything, it feels like this has intentionally been designed to make it so that you get the darkness creeping up your arm more. See, and you could easily just reach up there and light that. The weirdness here. So we jumped down here, so maybe there's something over here that I missed. Oh, there is. If this is supposed to be a horror game, which let's just assume it is.
She's making light. She's making a fire. She's got light on the other side.
Okay, so now know what we're doing.
What's she thinking? To get there.
Like, most horror games, in comparison, have you jump all over the place. Like real horror games too. Like The Evil Within tried to be a fairly heavy on the horror side mix of experience. In the game Fear 2, I've covered that. That tries to be half action, half horror games. But what they have in common is that you see a lot of variety in the scares, where I just don't feel like you have that same kind of variety of fear and scares.
Get up! Get up!
Okay.
What are you doing?
See, there's a animation that gets used exactly once. Like, wouldn't it have made so much more sense for there to be a way you could have checked, shoulder checked enemies and knocked them over when you didn't have a weapon. Allegedly, Senua has been trained as a warrior. She should know how to fight without.
Now the darkness will swallow you. Where is she going? Faster, faster, keep going, keep going. What is she doing? Stop, stop.
I don't know why it's rushing me. I have a flame. I've been perfectly safe with the flame up until this point. And you can't walk past there, so I guess the question is, do you want to just run through here, put the light out to do that? So we now just need to get the right angle. I don't understand why you wouldn't be able to just get the angle here. Is it to keep the wood out of it and uninvolved? Do I have to go all the way back up? I don't think I can climb up. Nope. What's funny is I feel like I triggered the location you're supposed to get it from way back here. Which, that doesn't really make sense either. Yeah, it just triggers that audio. I guess it just triggers that audio. Alright, we'll scan this. Maybe we just hadn't scanned it. I guess that's the case because we died. And so then we needed to scan this. Well, that was a bit of extra frustration for no good reason. And I wouldn't be half surprised if we find out that Dylan's head is still on our belt. And we've just been hallucinating that it was missing this whole time.
And a guiding flame in a world so black. The longer it burned, the more she convinced herself that there was nothing beyond its reach. How little separates us from what we fear.
Interesting.
Sigurd should eat the heart himself. Rain wants Fafnir's gold.
Interesting. It didn't start playing the audio.
Sigurd should kill Rain before Rain kills him. Sigurd should find Brynhild the Valkyrie, who sleeps enchanted sleep. Sigurd heeds the bird's advice. He kills Rain, eats Fafnir's roasted heart, and takes Fafnir's treasure. And he embarks on a new quest, to ride to Hinderfell and find Brynhild the Valkyrie.
That's an interesting point to be the second to last part of the story. It's surprising that there aren't bats instead of these groping hands that don't do anything. And you should probably see that they're not hands and that they're vines and roots at some point. but I don't know if that makes any sense. Here we have yet another animation of crawling. It, once again, just makes it feel like this is a this was going to be a CGI movie. But if it was going to be a CGI movie, it also kind of fails in that aspect because there's not enough characters. And so if this was supposed to be I bet this isn't a fight. See, we weren't hearing the demon voice when the head was gone. Nope, we really are gonna fight it. Right. Okay. So we're playing this on the easiest point, and it seems like what we're gonna have to do is try for quick attacks to break his armor. So, what I think what happened here is that this was probably going to be part of a major selling point in the game, but even at this level, I think I wasted a focus here. Like, even in the advertisement and focus on this game, when it was promoted, this was never shown. And I think there's probably a good reason for that, in that it would be incredibly misleading to show this fight, even though it actually is in the game. There's the fight. That was uneasy, not particularly any more difficult than fighting a shield character. But that should have definitely been something that was shown off, I think, if it was finished. And I suspect it wasn't finished. And that's why this wasn't shown in the advertisement. I don't know if I was supposed to mash any buttons during that cutscene or not.
People think of evil as an unnatural,
but
invisible force.
There definitely could have been smaller versions of that creature attacking throughout the entire game.
Behind the gods.
Just dog-like creatures.
A familiar hand. Cold and cruel. He tried to fix her with his rituals. Kept her trapped in that hole. She couldn't say which was worse. The darkness. Or the monster that her father had become. She couldn't fight them both. And so she left. Headed for the one ray of light that shone down on her. If she had stayed, she wouldn't have survived. But
a dark cutscene here.
I'm so sorry, my love. She will save his soul. Even if this time she can't save her own.
Once again, the image on the right seems like it was filmed with a very different kind of camera, lesser quality camera than the 3D image on the
Forgive
left.
me, Senua. I know you have no reason to trust me anymore. But believe this, it was my mission to make you hate the darkness with a passion so great it would focus your mind on this quest. For without it, I've been like those slain. All this time, I've wanted to protect you from the truth that would have destroyed you a long time ago. But you have conquered your darkness at every turn. You deserve to see behind the veil of darkness.
Then take me to the mountain. As deep as we can go.
Once again, we're back to staring directly at the screen.
You will not survive what is in there.
Okay, well, here's the problem now is we're either going to go late and finish the game, which I bet we won't do that in another 50 minutes, or we'll start another episode, which is what I'm going to do, and then we can potentially have a fairly short wrap-up episode compared to most of my wrap-up episodes, which tend to be fairly long. There is a heavy chance, I believe, that we're not going to save Dylan, save his soul, and whatever that really means, even. We're not going to defeat Hela. We're just really introducing her as the bad guy of Hellblade 2, which, playing this now, we know there is going to be a Hellblade 2. Somebody who had bought this on day one wouldn't have been given that guarantee, so this might be a cliffhanger ending, which cliffhanger endings are never really well received. And we'll just see if we can somehow run back around and see if we can find the other totems. I'm not sure it's even really worth it to try and find the totems, even if I had a map in front of me, because that would just be weird. What I'd really like is a big hallway with a duplicate totem of every totem in the game at the end, and you can just walk right through that hallway and in the game, or you can listen to every totem and get the rest of the story. That would be really nice, but most games wouldn't want to be that nice. Although, like, this game has done as much as it can do, so I don't see a reason why it would try and waste another couple hours of gameplay on you, looking for collectibles or try to get you to play this game a second time. If there was, say, a new game plus where you had the stronger sword, it doesn't really change much. It would have to basically be a new game plus with all the doors unlocked and a stronger sword, and even then it's mostly a waste of time. Anyways, that's going to be it for this recording. As always, I ask you to like, share, subscribe, comment, and watch every second of my videos. If you want a friend to follow me on any social media sites, there's a whole bunch of links down below. And if you want to support me further, there's a link to Patreon, or you can friend me on Steam and gift me a game off my wishlist. Thank you for watching. Have a good evening.